Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. What we have for you today is the winner of the Snap Judgments League Season 3, a huge multi-100-person tournament that took place over the past month and a half, has had a winner decided. We're going to begin with that deck. We've got 4 amazing decks for you with full guides, including a couple of extra decks for your weekend mission needs, and so much more in this video. It's super late as I'm recording after we just finished the podcast with Gunny, Docty, and Joe from Snap Decisions, so let's get started by talking about this deck. This is not a new deck to those of you who've been on the channel for a while. We've seen versions of this before, but the winner of Snap Judgments League Season 2, the player who finished in, I believe, 3rd place on the Infinite Leaderboard last season, created a deck that's just like this. I believe it is a thena different. Literally, thena is the one card that was not in that original version. And I think that the deck is otherwise exactly the same or within 1 or 2 cards. And this is the deck that won the league. The player that won is Beanman, and absolutely crushed this tournament, beating Dragono, who is the top King of the Hill tournament winner in the Snap Judgments Discord. So this is an extremely accomplished win in a tournament that featured hundreds of players, including some of the most competitive and top ladder players in all of Marvel Snap, including Sizer, Butt, Jimmy Dickens, so on and so forth. For this list, you're going to need, I'm trying to include this now, by the way. Let me know if you actually like this little section. The Series 5 cards you need, you're going to need Kitty, Thena, Kate Bishop, and Wiccan. Those 4 cards are extremely important for this list, and you should have them if you are planning on playing this. Kate is the least important of those as a general rule, because what Kate Bishop does is make sure you get to trigger Wiccan by having those extra 1-drops. You can figure out to run a cheaper curve. You can also argue that you cannot play Thena and play something like Jeff in that place. It is dangerous. Thena gives you an extra scalar, and I've been informed, I've been told based on the gameplay, that Thena ended up being extraordinarily powerful in these games, despite Lady Deathstrike's presence in the deck, because that extra scaling threat was huge in taking home victories. Alioth is the best in slot 6. The best 6 in the game is Mockingbird, but Mockingbird doesn't operate as a real 6. The best 6 cost card that you play 6 for is Alioth. Alioth is a problem solver. Marvel Snap is a card where games either have power or do things, or in some combination do those two. Well, most cards have power and do things, but you get the idea. Have big stats or do things. Alioth says the do things is not a concern as long as you can get priority, and you have enough stats to be able to work around the rest of it. However, if you're missing Alioth, Doctor Doom is a perfectly acceptable replacement. It's not as good, but no one will expect Doctor Doom in this list because everyone knows this style of list runs Alioth. White Widow here can be Medusa, Jeff, or Baron Mordo. Widow is great here, but there's not really even a Clog sub-theme. I guess there's a Clog sub-theme. The Clog sub-theme is Viper, Hood, and White Widow, along with sometimes Kate Bishop. You can still run that more or less fine without White Widow. It's worse, but the deck's not going to collapse in itself, especially because you run Lady Deathstrike. Lady Deathstrike, Vision, and can be Vision or Legion. You're just looking for a really good 5. Lady Deathstrike does solve a lot of problems for a lot of decks that are trying to go under you, but Vision and Legion offer different upsides, different levels of upside, different positives that you can do in the deck. So again, congrats to B-Man on the huge win. Our winner of Season 1 was Tommy Nyquist, Slush Death. Our winner of Season 2 was Butt. Our winner of Season 3 is Beanman. When we get to like 8 of these, we're going to do a tournament of winners, and I'll manage to get some kind of sponsors to make a big prize, so get yourselves ready for that. Turn 1 is Maria if you need a 2, if not Kitty or Demon. Kitty or Hood. Sorry, I'm already thinking of it as the Demon. Turn 2 is Kate if you don't have a 3-drop. Thena if you're doing bounce stuff, if you're trying to get the Kitty stuff going. And then you can always just drop, not Angela, White Widow, excuse me. Turn 3 is Speed, or 2+1. Turn 4 is Wiccan, or 3+1. Turn 5, Lady Deathstrike, or 3+2. And turn 6 is Magneto or Alioth with whatever else you can. Does that make sense for everybody? It's a really, really simple deck to play. It's very strong. Again, a deck that looks just like this, finished 3rd. Well, this and another deck that Butt was playing finished 3rd on the Infinite Leaderboard last season and just won this huge tournament. This is a legit deck. Right after this, it's time for an exclusive deck. Shuri Enjoyer, one of the top players in the history of Marvel Snap, is back, and we'll talk more about that right after one last look at this deck, and me asking you to hit that sub button if you're willing. Right below me is a little red button, and if you hit that, you are then subbed to the channel. You can help us get to our goal of 15,000 subs. In return, we offer you 7 days a week of Marvel Snap videos, at least 3 new decks every single weekday. We get all sorts of exclusive decks from top content creators. We are one of the only places, since he's off Twitter for now, that you can get Safety Blade decks, for example. Twitter no longer exists in Brazil, unfortunately. Fortunately? It's hard to say. But that means players like Shuri Enjoyer and Avazord are using this channel to get their brews out to the community. So if you want top decks from top players, this is your home for that. Hit that sub button. Again, that little red button right below me. Help us get to 15,000. Liking and commenting really helps us fight that algorithm too. The other thing we offer in return is we do the biggest giveaway in all of Marvel Snap. We give away 10 season passes at the start of every season. We've already given away 5. Sunday's video is the last of this next set of 5 that we're giving away for season passes. How this fundamentally works is as follows. At some point in this video, I'm going to ask you a question. As long as you're subbed, as long as you've liked, you answer that question, and someone in the comments for this video will win a season pass. The same thing has been true of every video this week, and will be true of Sunday's video, and then we'll do 1 a week for the rest of the season to try and get season passes in as many of our loyal viewers' hands as possible. I know this seems wild, but if I could, and I know that it's a fairly excessive amount that we give away, but if I could honestly give just everyone a season pass, I would. So I do it as a giveaway, as a way to try and give back to all of you for supporting me so much, and just know how much I appreciate it. We also are hosting the Snap Judgments League tournament. Today is the last day of open signups. After this, you're going to have to do some extra messaging and manual stuff if you'd like to join the Snap Judgments League. We are kicking off Season 4 almost immediately after this. There are $500 in prizes along with season passes for winning any pod. All you have to do is check out patreon.com/snapjudgments or join the Snap Judgments League Discord in the description of this video. Either one of those will do the job, so please do check it out if you are at all interested in tournament Marvel Snap play or want to play with some major top Marvel Snap content creators. Alright, Shuri Enjoyer bounce. Shuri Enjoyer is back with a bounce deck. Literally in yesterday's video, I was wondering how long until someone combined Bast with Silver Sable. Well, turns out the literal next day. Bast with Silver Sable is great. Silver Sable is a lot of power. We're going to review Silver Sable later in this video, so I'm not going to go into any great detail now, but Silver Sable is really, really, really strong, and extra strong with Bast. Bast, of course, once you're running that card for things like Silver Sable, you get the +6 power on playing it on Hood. Mysterio becomes a 2/9. Sage gets to start with a 3, and then every other change is really much, well, Rocket gets the +3. The other changes are smaller, and you're actually losing power on Beast and Black Swan, but because you gain so much more power, then losing 2 is annoying, but you gain that back on a Silver Sable. You gain that back on a you gain almost all that back on just a Sage, and you get so much more back on either Hood or Mysterio that those are your key targets. We'll talk more about that later. I also have a theory. I talk about this a lot in the podcast, so I'm not going to go into detail. But my working theory is, since they made Beast a 3/5, they're going to have to change Black Swan's cost. We know Black Swan's activate doesn't work if triggered on turn 6, which means if you play her on turn 5, the activate on turn 6 will not actually do anything unless there's a turn 7 for magic. Then I don't think they're going to let the card be that bad. A card that you can only play on turn 3 or turn 4 is not very good, especially with its ability and in the decks where it fits along the cost curve. Playing her with just as a whole turn 3 or with just a 1 on turn 4 is not something Bounce can afford to do. However, if you can play her with a 2 on 4 or a 1 on 3, all of a sudden this card starts to make an awful lot more sense. My working guess is that she's going to become a 2 or get some more power so that she's a worthwhile thing to play on turn 4 all alone. So if that's the case, this deck gets even better, because if she ends up getting her power chucked as a 2, then all of a sudden the Bast version of this is even better. This is a deck to keep in mind, to keep paying attention to. Alright, so Shuri Enjoyer sent this to us. Monkey and Sage are the only required cards. Black Swan can probably be Sasquatch. There are versions of this that run Sasquatch in that spot that work really, really well. Nico and Silver Sable are the best in spot 1-drops. Iceman, Ham, Korg, and basically a ton of other ones fit in those spots, but Nico and Sable are best in spot. I would be very surprised if in any bounce deck we did not see Hood, Sable, and Nico as the automatic deck cards. US Agent is amazing in this list. US Agent is having a very healthy meta, thanks largely to our friend Barzy, who popularized that Scar deck that we featured last week that's all over the damn place. US Agent is so good against that. US Agent does not care if they run armor. It does not care if they run Cosmo. It just says, oh, you're 410s? Yeah, they're 4/6s. I'm really sorry about that. I can go right over the top of that. US Agent can be Shang or Shadow King, but if you want US Agent and Silver Sable are both in spotlights right frickin' now. Alright, so is Bast back? No Bast Bounce Guy hit number 1 with a Bast free bounce deck, and since then I have literally not seen Bast in a bounce deck. No Bast Bounce Guy, by the way, is one of the Snap Judgments Alliance. Snap Judgments Alliance, Snap Legends are competitive alliance. So we've chatted about this. Just doesn't like Bast and Bounce. He prefers to try and do other big things. I think that time may be ending, and I think Bast might be coming back relatively soon if I'm right about my Black Swan prediction. But even if not, this deck is awesome. I'm going to be playing a lot of this in Infinite because I love me some Bounce. Turn 1 Bast if you have Mysterio or Hood in hand. Sable is generally good as well. If you have any bounce cards, you can also play Hood here, but you want to make sure that you're not going to get that -3 stuck on the board. This is the type of deck that really wants to deal with that. There are other bounce decks, particularly Werewolf bounce decks, which honestly don't care all that much about the -3, but you don't really want it here. Turn 2 is Agent, US Agent, or you can drop 2 1s. Turn 3, you can Sage if you can Beast on 4. Or you can just do further early plays. Same exact concept on turn 4, although you do not want to Sage 4 and Beast 5 if you can avoid it. Because you really want to drop Black Swan until she's activate exactly on turn 5, and you would like to do that ideally with Falcon. You cannot do that with you cannot make that play with Beast any longer, which is again further evidence for what I'm suggesting is going to happen to Black Swan. You can also Black Swan, and if you bounce Sage on 4 with Beast, you can Black Swan and Sage at this point, because Sage will cost 2 from being beasted. Your plan on turn 6 is Mysterio, Monkey, and whatever else you can that's free, ideally from Black Swan or Beast. Beast is also a good play on turn 5 if you didn't see Black Swan. Cool. Right after this next bit, we're going to talk weekend missions. We're going to go over some more decks, but one last look at this list. This is a very classic bounce list. This is where I'm also planning on starting, just for the record, when, why is this, am I allergic to knowing what this card's called? The card that is data mine for next season. It's a 2/1 bounce card that when it returns cards to hand gets 2 power for each card that's bounced. This is the deck I am starting with for that card as well. Just in case you were wondering, I will very likely cut US Agent from this list and just put it in there. I also really want to go back to Iron Man, but I can't figure out how to fit Iron Man, so I'm just going to sort of move on from that for now. But remember, Classic Bounce used to run Iron Man, and Iron Man is still an extremely strong option in shells such as this one. If you'd like to see gameplay from these decks, it's Friday. It's Friday, which means it is the night of the Pirate King. It's Tuccrr, one of my favorite people in this whole frickin' community, is streaming tonight at 9 or 10 Eastern. Please do check him out. The great, awesome Parry Manilow will have a video of yesterday's decks up at some point this morning on YouTube if you want to check that out. Tuccrr streaming on Twitch. And then tomorrow morning, FaThorNewman will review all the decks of the week. And Sunday, KingofCanada will be playing Sunday's videos deck. So if you want gameplay, we got you covered. Next up, we have, oh shit, look, it's Tuccrr. Our homie has a banger. Look, this isn't a totally original deck, but when the homie hits top 10 for the first time, we gotta talk about the deck that does it. This is the same list, card for card, as the Phoenix Force we covered last week, with one change. Last week, it had Hulkling in it. This week, it has Symbiote Spider-Man in it. That's it. It's the same deck. Otherwise, we've talked about this. We know what this is. So we're going to cover it because, like, Symbiote Spider-Man's amazing in this list. I miss Hulkling. Like, Hulkling's best home lasted literally a week. That card, sorry if you bought it, but that card is such a dud. Symbiote Spider-Man took that card's spot in its single best list. This list where it was single coolest is now Symbiote Spider-Man's spot. And Symbiote Spider-Man remains great in this. I'm just going to tell you before we go through the cards, Symbiote Spider-Man's use cases do not Symbiote Spider-Man a Phoenix Force. I believe that is bugged and not moving cards. But you can Symbiote Spider-Man a Nimrod, obviously, for a 12-power Nimrod. That's the same thing as a Shuri Nimrod. You can Symbiote Spider-Man a Shuri, especially if the opponent magics and there's a decent amount of magic out there. You can Symbiote Spider-Man Shuri Nimrod and get the 4x Nimrod thing going. That tends to win a few games. You can, once in a while, it doesn't happen often, but Symbiote Spider-Man the doubled Nico for a 20-power Nico, which you can then Arnhem Zola. And finally, you can Symbiote Spider-Man. The other card you can Symbiote Spider-Man is you can grab yourself a Human Torch or Multiple Man with Symbiote Spider-Man to Ghost Spider. And then I lied because I forgot one more. If you can get some reasonable sized stuff and eat it with Venom, you can also drop Symbiote Spider-Man there, re-eat some stuff, get a huge Venom that you can then Zola. Symbiote Spider-Man is great here. It is better than Hulkling, but Hulkling was really, really great for a while. I gotta talk to Orsted and see what he's doing with this list at this point. We covered a version of this without Symbiote Spider-Man last week. If you're interested, please do check that out for full replacements. Again, super duper late at night as this one is happening. But do check out the homie Tuccrr on twitch.tv/Tuccrr. Such a great person. You will not be sad to check him out. So again, my boy hit the top 10. Generally speaking, the main game plan is Nico if it's destroy or just pass. At this point, I will play Nico if it's double 2 reasonably often. Turn 2, you would really like to destroy Multiple Man or Torch with that Nico, but if not, you'll just happily play Multiple Man or Torch and just leave them sitting. Turn 3, you destroy one of them if you think you can see Phoenix Force. The only time I won't destroy them, just sort of spec destroy them on turn 3 nowadays, is if there's a location that has like stopped a draw, or the opponent's putting rocks on my deck, or a location's putting rocks on my deck or something, and then I'm much less likely to draw Phoenix Force, and if I already have like a lot of the Nimrod package, I will hold destroy for the Nimrod package, knowing that I'm not likely to destroy otherwise. Once you get Phoenix Force, you're just sort of moving it and then either Nimrodding it and Ghost Spidering it, and that's fine. But the other play is you go Shuri or Symbiote into Nimrod, and then you're either doubling Nimrod with Shuri or Symbiote, and then you destroy it twice. Cool? You destroy that Nimrod twice. If you have Symbioted Nimrod, you also have the option to just Zola it. Sometimes you'll take a 50-50 of Shuri, Nimrod, Zola, depending on how favored you feel in the matchup and how strong you've been in other locations. That's how you win with this list. This is a really, really simple list. This is one of the highest win rate Phoenix lists we've ever seen because Symbiote Spider-Man gives it an extra really obvious playline. This is always a powerful deck, but Phoenix Force is often a high skill cap deck, and that scares some players off. The Symbiote Spider-Man power in this shell has made it more accessible than ever, so if you're looking to try it, please do feel free. It's not that expensive of a deck either. Ghost Spider and Nimrod are both Series 4 cards. Actually, so is Phoenix Force, right? So there's a lot of Series 4 cards here. Also, all 3 of them are Season Pass cards, so if you just bought Season Passes and you've been playing long enough, you would own Ghost Spider, Phoenix Force, and Nimrod. And if you buy Season Passes, then you would also have Symbiote Spider-Man, which means the only card that hopefully you are missing is Nico Minoru, would be missing is Nico Minoru, who is irreplaceable, but a deck that only has one Series 5 card that wasn't immediately available is still a fairly good deal in this strangely expensive game. Weekend mission decks. We got one more Symbiote Spider-Man deck that we're going to talk about to go with the one above. We already talked about a Symbiote Spider-Man deck, right? We're not going to do a full guide, we're just going to talk about it. We got one more Silver Sable deck. That's going to be at the end. That's going to be the full guide. We already covered a Silver Sable deck. That was the Shuri Enjoyer bounce deck. And then we got one deck with both that we're going to talk about. It's got a really great win rate. And I'm going to tell you something about that deck. So let's talk first about Symbiote Spider-Man. Symbiote Spider-Man has been a very, very good pre-infinite card. It is, in fact, one of the best pre-infinite cards stats-wise we've ever seen. However, once you check infinite, whether you're checking top 50% infinite or top 10% infinite, the win rate drops to about 50%, and the cube rate goes to something minuscule. I don't think that's anything saying that the card is weak. I'm saying that this is a card that should be reasonably easy to retreat against if you can't beat, and junk should do a reasonable job of holding in check. The meta is not always going to be that. I think Symbiote Spider-Man is a reasonably future-proof card. It is also a ridiculously fun card, but it is not one that I think is immediately going to vault you to the very top ranks of Marvel Snap, unless you are a player like Avazord who thinks in combo turns. Are you the type of player who, when they play other card games, goes for things like infinite combos that make sense? Then Symbiote Spider-Man might be a top-level card for you. For everyone else, this is more of a fun tier card that will eventually, seemingly because of its power, find an incredibly insane home. This is fundamentally a card that is better than Grandmaster is right now by a fair margin, but has similar breakability concerns. Well, similar breakability likelihood. The Symbiote Spider-Man I want to talk about is one more Ika deck. Viewers might have noticed I really like mill decks, and this is a very, very cool mill deck. It runs. Oh shit! I didn't even realize this ran Silver Sable. I'm very. I've been teaching again, and just we're doing our best while I get my schedule back under control. Um, Actually, well, I got a thing to say about this during question of the day. Silver Sable is 1,000,000,000,000,000% not needed for this list. Although she does have some small synergy with Gladiator, just for the record. Use Silver Sable and Gladiator, you're going to weaken that top card, make it more likely for Gladiator to kill it. But then you also don't get the extra value out of Silver Sable if it was already weaker. So there's a little bit here. I don't know. I don't actually think Silver Sable is necessary here. Obviously, neither is Symbiote Spider-Man, but Symbiote Spider-Man is pretty damn cool because that re-trigger on Zemo or Gladiator is very good, especially on Gladiator, where now all of a sudden Gladiator has 14 strength and is very likely to kill anything that's causing you trouble. This deck's goal is to basically get rid of all of your opponent's cards, and then all of a sudden you just have a 2/6 Maximus, which is great stats. Jeff gives you some optionality in terms of where your power is. It's Jeff. I don't have to explain what Jeff is. And then you're just trying to mill him out using Yondu, Cable, Zemo, and Gladiator, and you get a double trigger of Cable, Yondu, Zemo, or Gladiator from Symbiote Spider-Man. Again, the main goal for that, to me, is likely to be Gladiator. If you can fill the opponent's board or get so big in a spot that people can't compete, Cannonball is amazing. Red Hulk is a ton of power, and Shang-Chi says if they are a problem, if they are getting a bajillion cards out, you can still blow them up. Really cool deck. Props to Ika. This is not all we're going to see of Ika today. We are finally going to get to the title deck soon. And spoiler, it is an Ika list. All right, so this is Silver Sable. Silver Sable is, hear me say this, the best one drop in the game right now. This card is great. Absolutely excellent. It's as good as we thought and then better. It goes in more simple shells because -2 power is so much more than -1. It is not needed for anything but bounce, though. This is a completely replaceable card in every shell I've seen it in that is not a bounce shell. It is a required card in bounce. If you want to play the best bounce decks, you need this card. If you don't care very much about bounce, this is the best one, but in much the same way that speed is the best 3. Speed is probably the best 3-drop right now in a vacuum, at least in most decks. However, he's not enough better than the next 3-drop to make him something that you should have spent limited resources on if your resources are limited. Silver Sable, outside of bounce, works like that. In bounce, she's more like Nocturne. Nocturne was, when she was the premier 3 in the game, the best card in the game, and so much better than the other options at that cost slot that it was worth getting her even with limited resources. If you like bounce, I think that's where Silver Sable lands. If you don't like bounce, I think she's much closer to speed, where she's the best, but it's close enough that you can afford to not own her. Hopefully that makes sense for everyone. All right. Another Sable and Symbiote list. I thought I only had one, but apparently I have two. This is KX Friends, Sable, Symbiote. It's a bounce list. I told you, she's really good in bounce. This bounce list tries to run Symbiote Spider-Man as well as Silver Sable. KX4N had a ridiculously good win rate, managed to get into the top 10 with this, and said Symbiote Spider-Man doesn't really belong in this list. It's not good enough for the list. I can see Symbiote Spider-Man having some use here. Most of the time, though, what it's really going to end up doing is re-triggering your Hazmat, which is fine, but not important. You can try and re-trigger a Widow for a Clog, that works, but you can't re-trigger Viper because it's going to trigger on the thing that you would want Viper to be. Same thing for Beast, right? Werewolf already gets big enough. Re-triggering Sage is useful, but because this deck is so expensive, you're very unlikely to be able to actually pull that off. Hopefully you understand the problem I'm really driving at here. I guess Hood's an okay hit, and Sable's an okay hit, and Nico can be an okay hit. This is really just here for Hazmat. You don't need Symbiote Spider-Man for this list, although this list is very strong. By the by, I hit infinite with the list that is not this list, but looks like it by going 13-1 through the 90s. That's going to be Sunday's video if you're curious. Alright, Killmonger isn't real is what Ika named this, but Ika decks are. I'm going to be honest. We featured fairly similar decks to the point where if there wasn't a twist on this, I wouldn't have featured it. And if Ika wasn't the original creator of the Wixie shell, I wouldn't have featured. Because this is Ika's shell, and Ika came up with the new innovation on it, I thought it was worth sharing, worth featuring, worth making our main deck of the day. I know it's at the end of the video, but that's because it is a Sable list, not because I think this list is anything but stellar. In fact, I think this is one of the easiest decks to win with in Marvel Snap right now. The bounce list is great, but super hard to play. I think they're comparable in strength. This is great and ridiculously simple. The other reason I featured this is after playing a bunch of this list, Ika says this is the easiest list he has ever played in triggering Wiccan, which seems extremely important in the meta, right? Like, Wiccan is a very powerful card in this exact shell and certain bounce shells. He doesn't really go in much else. Sorry, and that very first X type of shell, Wiccan is also a really good card, right? Like, so sort of decks that want to run a bunch of cheap stuff and then a top end of Goliath Magneto are basically where Wiccan goes. Yeah? He's got one or two other decks, but the main ones at the top of the meta are those I mentioned. Occasionally bounce, and then this shell, whether it runs Pixie or not. So, this shell, if we want to trigger him and we're not running Quicksilver, we're not running Domino, this is the single most consistent way to do so. Also, please note, running Quicksilver and Domino make you less likely to draw Wiccan because they're taking up spots in your draw order. Alright, let's get to it. You can find Ika playing this deck at twitch.tv/Ika_MTS. This deck needs Pixie, Mobius, Kate, and Wiccan. Pixie was just in Spotlight, so hopefully you grabbed it. Kate was Season Pass, hopefully you grabbed it. Mobius is a Series 4 card, so if you got Wiccan, this deck is for you. Same exact logic for Goliath and Doom as earlier discussed. Feel free to change that up as necessary. Marvel Boy for this list can be Shadow King. I think Marvel Boy is stellar here. We have Silver Sable, Maria Hill, Nico, and Nightcrawler. That is 4 ones, and Kate Bishop to create ones. If you can get 2 of those out, Marvel Boy is huge and makes your Goliath really consistent. Silver Sable and Nico are just good ones here. Iceman, Korg, and Ham. The sheer number of ones is why this is so consistent and effective. Ika had a 79% win rate in the top 100 with this, and again, the most consistent Wiccan trigger. Turn 1, you play Maria Hill if you need a 2-drop. Nico if it's draw 2 or demon, because you'll happily turn Pixie or whatever else into a demon or blow it up to draw 2. And then Sable is better than Nightcrawler if neither of those two things are the case. Turn 2 is Pixie if you have it, unless you have both Magneto and Goliath in hand, and even if you do at that point, because you're fairly unlikely to mess anything up too bad. Like, if your 1s cost 3 and your 3s cost 1, you're still probably mostly okay here. Like, you're happy your 3s cost 1, you just live. But you just basically play Pixie on 2, unless you have Wiccan and need Kate to make sure you can hit it. Kate, if you need a 1, is better than 2 1s. Turn 3, Mobius. Mobius is just crazy in the meta right now. There's a lot of Scar in the meta. There's a lot of Mockingbird in the meta. There's always some death in the meta. There's always the million locations Mobius stops. Mobius is amazing, in addition to also working amazingly with Pixie. If you have many 1s, you would like to play Marvel Boy, and if you don't have 1s that are in play, then just go back to playing Mobius and hope that that card helps. Turn 4, you're trying to play Wiccan. You will also happily play some earlier cards. Basically, this is a deck where you want to get Pixie going or you want to get Wiccan going. If neither of them are going, the deck's probably going to lose, but this deck is, again, extremely consistent at getting one of those 2 going. Turn 5 is Wiccan. You're still fine Wiccaning if you went Marvel Boy in a 1 on turn 4, for example, and that's better than 3+2 if you did play Wiccan. please feel free to Magneto or Alioth. If you play Pixie, then turn orders are useless, right? Pixie messes up your turn order completely. And turn 6 is Magneto or Alioth. I tend to prefer Alioth on turn 6, but you will notice plenty of decks have really powerful turn 5s, and if you see a 5 that might cause you problems, don't hesitate to Alioth earlier. I'm talking particularly of Bounce, where if you think you can predict where they're going to either Falcon or Beast, and Alioth that, you've just won the game. You've won a lane, stopped their bounce, and closed things down. All good? One last look at this list. Silver Sable here is absolutely great. That extra power is really nice. It works very well as a lead into Pixie and helps you make up for the fact that Pixie has no power. It helps you get priority for Alioth. Great card, great deck. Marvel Boy is really, really stellar in a lot of different smaller shells than we expected right away. And Wiccan has this shell in which he is an A+ card, even if he's not that in every single deck. Thanks to Ika for this awesome deck, and thank you all for watching. Let's do 2 questions of the day, because again, redonkulously late at night, and then it's bedtime. So, Michael H. Myers, I wanted to say something of this. The new house rule. Michael H. Myers says Copycat is the best card in the game, prove him wrong. I don't love the prove me wrong meme, but Copycat is distinctly not the best card in the game, because the best card in the game needs to be both the individually strongest and the context dependent strongest. I don't think Copycat copies either sniff test. The consistency on Copycat is lacking. It is a high variance card. Step 1. It can be extremely powerful, right? But there are plenty of hits that do little or nothing, as anyone who's played the card knows. Further, it has to be compared with other cards in its cost slot. Copycat is great, but is it necessarily better than other 3s? Are there decks where you would greatly, like good stuff decks, not like specific decks, where you would greatly prefer speed? Yes. Are there decks where Nocturne is as good? Are there a lot of games where Nocturne is every bit as good? Yes. How about Red Guardian? Is there a meta where cards like Thena and Werewolf by Night are actual problems with Madame Web coming out next week? Red Guardian is arguably as good. All of those things are as good. And then in terms of sheer power, in a deck that is built for Copycat doesn't really do anything extra, right? She's just a good card. Well, if we're building a deck, we can build around a card like Mockingbird, Iron Man, Shang-Chi, which just do more. Mockingbird often ends up also costing 3, putting it ahead of the curve. And we're not even considering other 3s, which are not just generalist 3s. Because there are cards in the game like Werewolf by Night, which are game-winning and extraordinarily powerful in that cost slot. I don't think Copycat is the best card in the game, and I don't think Copycat has a very good claim for best card in the game. I think it's got an argument for best 3-drop, but I think by this time next week, Copycat will be seen as the 3rd best 3-drop, not the best. I think the best will be Red Guardian, because people will be running Madame Web all over the place, and that should be a relatively easy hit to get. I think the second will be either, depends how you want to count Werewolf. I think the second's probably Werewolf, because Werewolf has a bounce shell that is one of the 2 or 3 best decks in Marvel Snap, and then the 3rd best 3-drop is likely to be Speed, which is the biggest, and as of right now, probably either that or Werewolf are the best. So I don't think Copycat is the best card in the game, because it's not even the best card in its slot. Lost in the Shuffle asked about the Series 3 slog. They weren't specifically talking about this. I don't know gender, I'm not assuming. But I would like to have a thought. We know that packs are coming to Marvel Snap, and because Series 3 is so painful, I hope that packs include a way to speed up Series 3, not variants, but actual cards that get you through the Series 3 slog faster. I don't know that that's the case, but we know that if they're going to give us packs of cards, they have to fill it with something, and it's a reasonable thing to fill it with for earlier players to fill with Series 3 cards. It's possible there are variants and you're still going to have to do a collection track, but at least it will feel better to get access to more cards sooner, which will give you more play earlier in the game while keeping you playing for longer. That is my hope for the packs that have been data mined in Marvel Snap, and SnapFan seems to assume is coming relatively soon. Finally, I'm often asked about parenting and stuff like that, in Marvel Snap. And since the school year started, literally 3 days ago, it's not a long school year, I've been exhausted and I haven't been spending as much time with my son as possible. My son started school today and we made a new house rule that I'm going to urge all parents who can to follow because it made my son ridiculously happy today. The rule is, as long as his responsibilities were taken care of, he could veto me doing work at any point in the evening and we'd have to stop and play. So I was getting this video set up earlier. The reason I'm recording it at 1 in the morning when I have work in the morning is because I was trying to get this video set up earlier before the podcast, and I was planning on recording. And when I sat down, my son finished his work, he cleaned, and then he was like, let's play with our Dragon Ball toys. And the house rule says he's more important than a video, he's more important than any extra work or stress. So that's the kid, right? So I stopped what I was doing and I played with him. And then after dinner, I tried to come do work and he was like, but more play. He got a little sad when I tried to do work, so I played with him a little bit extra. Spend the time on what's important, friends and fam. I don't think you'll regret it. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with on-air thanks. My loves, I've got one new Patreon that I have not added yet. I'm so sorry. It's, again, really late at night. You might notice my eyes are not happy with me. So let's fly through this, and then we will take our time in Sunday's video when it's a weekend, and we've got the top 5 decks of last season, and what I assume are going to be the top 5 decks going forward. I'd like to say thank you to Abigail Giesland, Mandatory Burnout Cables, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, Always Kind LAB, FaThorNewman, who is such a good person, Good Dog Gamer, got a deck from you to feature soon, Zeus Vault, Inc., I Am Frostman, Jay Never Eats, Corwin, Primed Ryan, thank you so much for all the support, my friend, Ryan Burke, Kertix Lee, Koi Ray, who I just like Koi Ray a lot. Thank you for the message earlier, Koi Ray. Yes, you were right. The Black Dahlia, Pyrophros, The Goat Seeker, Den Man Falcon, miss you, my friend. Columbia was awesome, by the way. Quid Pro Joe, King of New Marvel Snap card content, who is on the podcast that will release tomorrow. Docty, Bat Nick, who's the homie, great person. You also haven't updated me on your life in a bit, but you got to do that. Ginger Prime, Philip Rakovich, who's back home and doing shorts for us. Missed you so much, Ratko. Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Bizza, X-Force V, and Skippy G. Tommy Nyquist, winner of Snatches League Season 1 and wonderful sponsor of Season 3. The King of Bros, The Great Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Woody, Kevsey Hoda, Luna Chris, Quantum Quinn, John Q, Clam, 8th Sage, Mod Supreme Models, literally one of my favorite people on this planet, Darth Tater, Joe P, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B, J.D. McDonaldinho, The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrum Mix, Matt H, DJ Mikey Hijinks, I hope you get this video early, my friend, No Frickin' Flex, Ocularis, Craig Sterry, Seamus, welcome back, thank you for catching up, as always, Jonesy, my current Alliance leader for, I guess, another day or so, and again, another one of my favorite people, Teachers Unite, Two Ties, the great Lauren Whatevs, again, lovely freaking human being, the Pirate King Tuccrr, who I think I've said enough nice things about today, but one more. Support Tuccrr, he's a damn star. The homie Min, who I miss consistently, and of course Gunny 2, who was also on that podcast. The T stands for I appreciate all of you very much. Maybe I'm sentimental because I'm exhausted, but I am sentimental tonight. If you'd like a really, really great Symbiote Spider-Man Galactus list, not the Darrow one, I think we have a better version of that, check right below me. I got that linked for you. See you tomorrow for the podcast, and then Sunday for another Snap Take. As always, peace.